the spring of 1896, the U.S. Supreme Court upheld the infamous separate but equal doctrine in a landmark case known as Plessy v. Ferguson. This ruling entailed the segregation of facilities, segregation of transportation, and segregation of public schools. While this ruling was technically never overturned, the Brown v. Board decision in 1954 marked the end of this racial segregation embedded in America's culture. As schools slowly became more integrated all over the South, racial diversity became more prevalent. Throughout history, these court rulings and historical trends have influenced our culture. In most American public schools, the student population consists of a variety of races, ethnicities, and social classes. But unfortunately, this intermixing of different backgrounds in schools has some negative effects. In this documentary, we will be analyzing socio-economic factors that influence high school students' success with three main questions. 1. How prevalently are different races and socio-economic groups isolated from each other, both across and within public high schools? 2. What are the reasons for this isolation? And 3. How can these social trends impact a student's potential academic success? Cliques are a staple of nearly every American high school. Students tend to group themselves with those who look like themselves, act like themselves, and speak like themselves. But do these same cliques exist at Plano? Plano Senior High School, founded in 1891, has a long history of tradition. Until 1956, Plano was a segregated school and remained majority Caucasian well after that. Nowadays, Plano Senior is a melting pot of various ethnicities, races, and social classes. Despite our diversity, racial clustering is everywhere, and our fear to integrate has many unforeseen consequences.
At Plano, I have a lot of white and Asian students in my classes, and back at Vines, there was much more of a mixed variety.
Typically, I see a lot of white, Asian, Indian. Yeah, that's about it.
I think that when I'm in class, I do tend to stick to people that I know and that I am friends with, and I think that, classes have people of all different races, but I will say that I am definitely more friendly with people that I've grown up with, and those people definitely are people that are white.
Yes, I mostly sit with Asians and Indians.
The majority of public high school students find themselves surrounded by their own race and socioeconomic status, and this can heavily impact the academic path they choose, their social environment, and even their future careers. According to the College Board in 2012, there are 300,000 students whose preliminary SAT test scores indicated they were prepared for advanced courses. In general, white and Asian students were more likely to go on to take AP courses. 60% of Asian students with strong math skills took AP Math, while only 30% of black students with strong math skills joined them. Strong correlations between a student's social attributes and academic course choices are found to be prevalent across the nation's high schools. The more important question seems to be why these racial trends occurred in the first place.
The Washington Post reports on new evidence schools in the United States are resegregating. Federal data show schools with a high percentage of poor and Black or Hispanic students climbed from 9% to 16% between 2000 and 2014.
Racial segregation is on the rise. The number of schools where 1% or less of the student population is white has more than doubled in the last 20 years.
The U.S. is marking 60 years since the end of segregation. A 1954 landmark Supreme Court ruling in the case of Brown versus the Board of Education struck down the separate but equal concept in education. This was meant to start the U.S. down a path towards equality in schools across America. But fast forward 6 decades, and it turns out segregation is actually still running rampant in the country.
Beyond Plano, it's clear a major contributor to inequality of academic success is due to ethnic dominance in certain areas that allow many public high schools to become primarily white or minority schools. High schools which consist of an ethnic majority other than white students often receive less public funding and fewer resources. However, on a diverse campus such as Plano, we interviewed Nita Thomason, an education professor at Collin County Community College, a published author of curriculum textbooks, and a columnist for the Dallas Morning News, to hear the factors of education trends from a sociological perspective.
Many minority students live in areas where the schools do not even offer AP courses. Some of the research shows that only 69% of our high schools in America actually offer AP courses. And some of those, especially inner city schools, do not even offer Algebra 2. When universities require Algebra 2 in order to take math and science classes, and those students have not even had the opportunity to take them if they wanted to, that would be a major deterrence to academic success.
There is no better place to see this racial divide than in some of Plano's most rigorous AP courses.
This year I'm in AP US History and AP English 3. Sophomore year I took AP World History, but I was in Humanities. And then freshman year I took AP Human Geography.
I'm taking AP Computer Science, AP English Language, AP Physics C, AP Comparative Government, AP Psychology, AP US History, AP Statistics, and AP Spanish Language and Culture this year. And in the past, I've taken Human Geography, World History AP, European History AP, and Calculus, and a bunch of honors classes too. I think that colleges appreciate students who are more academically inclined and who challenge themselves academically, so I think it won't be as hard for me to get into college as it will for some other people. When I was young, or even starting when I was pretty young, my parents started teaching me a lot of academic skills, like reading and writing, when I was about 3, and basic math when I was in 3rd grade, and algebra when I was in 5th grade. And since I've been young, they've been encouraging me to take more advanced classes, like AP classes and honors classes. And they're part of the reason that I take so many APs and honors classes right now.
Well, we know that students who enroll in AP courses are much more likely to be affluent, white, and Asian. The proportion of African American and Hispanic students is much, much lower. So that has a direct impact on which of those students will end up getting into better universities because of just grade point average alone. Students who take AP classes can graduate with more than a 4-point grade point average. And students who don't, even if they make straight A's, will not have that higher grade point average. to get into the better universities. So, even in school districts such as Plano, that would be a very large impact.
Students also find themselves surrounded by their friends, lunchmates, and people of the same cultural background. This is strong in the Asian community. But the racial composition looks a little different within some on-level classes. However, it's not just about the social factors of racial segregation. A study of the impact of socioeconomic status on student achievement in a rural East Tennessee school system shows us 3 Tennessee students who scored high on placement tests felt that since they were economically disadvantaged students, they wouldn't be able to succeed.
Parents are incredibly important when it comes to the development of children. I think that there are many different ways that parents influence children's attitudes, and one of the key factors, I believe, is the neighborhood that the children live in, and of course that is very much dependent on the income level of the parents. Much of the research now says that the greatest differences in academic excellence and achievement are now a direct result of the socioeconomic status of the family. But when I got out of college in the 70s, the differences were primarily between blacks and whites. And black children, especially from deprived neighborhoods, did not achieve academically. There was a big gap. And so there was a lot of emphasis that was put on how to raise the academic levels of the black children. And there was success. There's good news from that. And those differences are now not nearly as noticeable. But what has increased is the differences between children who are from lower socioeconomic homes compared to children who are more privileged. Now, it's interesting, there is a researcher who I think very highly of called Yuri Becker, and he has a theory called ecological systems theory. And in that theory, there are a number of different characteristics that have great influence on the development of the individual child. And of course, parents are a key factor, but also the neighborhoods, the schools, the peers. So all of these different aspects of a child's ecosystem have influence on whether or not the child is going to be academically successful.
What external social influences can impact segregation within schools?
I mentioned to you Bronfenbrenner's theory of social development, ecological social development, and there are several things involved with that I think probably have a large impact on academic success for all children in schools. One of those is, of course, the richness of the environment that the child is growing up in. Children who are in a language-rich environment, an experience-rich environment, have pathways form in their brain that are opened up and continue for a lifetime. Children who do not have this type of rich environment will have, in the brain development, in those very early years, there will be a pruning that takes place. And so those pathways never develop. And these types of environmental influences have a tremendous impact on children's success in school. And the success of young children continues throughout their education. So if a child is behind whenever they're in kindergarten, they will be more behind when they're in third grade, And they will be more behind whenever they are in 7th grade. And so it's like a continuing effect that is detrimental to the child's growth and development.
While high schools, segregated by social and economic status or otherwise, don't seem like a big deal to some, they have a genuine impact on the academic potential of high school students as they move into the future. Should students that are stuck in this endless cycle of deprivation think that they will not amount to anything? Should they set their expectations low? Should they not even be given a chance to succeed? As Americans, citizens of a country known as the melting pot, the land of liberty, and the home of the free, we each have a duty to ensure that America remains a place in which each person has equal opportunity for the pursuit of happiness, regardless of their social status or financial background. Divides between students of different socioeconomic statuses should be addressed to achieve equal opportunities to these different students. America is a melting pot. We are Americans. It is our duty as Americans to be diverse, yet still be equal.